I'm Angela Yee. Jasmine Brand is here with me.
Yes.
And we have Dr. Trisha Bailey here with us today, the author of Unbroken, which is your memoir. But, I mean, I have to say this because how could I not? But the richest Jamaican-born woman, $700 million net worth. And I'm only saying that because you can Google it.
It's public knowledge.
Yeah, it's public knowledge.
Does it feel weird to hear her say such big numbers like that?
Well, it's actually $1 billion, but
$1 billion.
yes,
Okay.
it does. It does.
Okay, it's $1 billion.
It does
Nice.
because in the space I'm in, it's almost like surreal. Like I function like, how can a little girl like me that came from such meager beginnings be in this space? So, but I know why I'm here now. I'm here to help and to inspire and to elevate the people who look like me.
And let me tell you how important that is for people who are listening, because like you said, the beginnings of your life, you know, you actually were born in Jamaica. You came to the United States, to Hartford, Connecticut when you were 13 years old?
13.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So what kind of major change, and I know I read the book, but in case people haven't, what was that like for you? Just that huge shock from coming from Jamaica where you felt very loved, even though you may not have had a lot of financial blessings at the time, coming to the United States, but people look at that as like, this is the dream to come to the United States and we're going to be successful and happy. What was that culture shock like for you?
Oh, wow. It was a ginormous culture shock. You know, when I was growing up, we were just happy kids, and we didn't even know we were poor. Like, I didn't know we were poor because it was like we were surrounded by some beautiful love from my grandmother, my aunt, her husband, my cousins were there. And then when I came, they told us that the roads were paved with gold in America. Mm-hmm. So, you know,
not.
I
They might have meant dog shit.
Angela.
I'm sorry.
I land in JFK, and we were like, my sister and I looking out like, okay, this stinks. And where's the gold?
They fixed the airport.
Yeah. And so in my second day here in the United States, I wanted to walk because we walked 3.5 miles to school in Jamaica, and walking and running was just a natural thing that we did. So I wanted to walk to school in Hartford. And so the second day I got lost. Mm-hmm. I got out of school at 1:15, and I didn't get back to the house until 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, no.
On the second day. Can you imagine what that's like?
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm walking, and I saw this man, and I said, I asked him, can he help me? The first one put me on the bus. And he was supposed to bring me to Laurel Street, but they dropped me off at Lawrence Street.
She had a bit of a patois accent.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Right. So after I got off the bus, then I'm like, I'm still lost. I don't know where I'm going. And I saw another man, and I asked him, and he walked me to the apartment building that I was living in.
This all sounds so dangerous, by the way. Like, if you would have known.
Right, but it's coming from such being innocent, like the community raised you in the small town of Woodland. And that first night was the first night I experienced the worst thing that could happen to a child. When I came home, my mom said, go kiss your father goodnight. And what he did thereafter was beyond atrocious. And I don't want to give away the book for anyone. Right. But it was the
your
start.
Stepfather, too, not your...
My stepfather.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was the start of my nightmare.
Right.
Right.
And the book really does start off with that. And so it was even hard for me because I had already met you when I read the book to read that, because the fact that as a child you could be so unprotected in your own home, and I'm sure people who are listening can have some type of idea. And, about this book is that you definitely did not hold back. Yeah. It was a lot of really graphic details that were hard to read, but it also, I think, can be very necessary for people to understand the trauma that can come with something like that. Yeah. Was that, talk to me about that and deciding what to put in and why so detailed and why that was important for you?
So that was intentional because when I was going through my nightmare, I read Oprah Winfrey's autobiography, and she had went through similar or the same trauma that I went through. And when I saw that she was able to overcome, because at this point she's on TV, and I saw her, I'm like, oh, well, if she can overcome this, I can also overcome this. And so when I started writing the book, I wanted to make sure that whoever in the world that is unhealed from trauma or is maybe going through trauma or looking for the signs of what those predators look like, they will be able to see it in my book so that hopefully it can save at least one person. If I have saved one person from experiencing this life or healing themselves, I have done my work. And because my job is truly to help others. That's why I wrote the book, is to help people not only to overcome the trauma and to have the resilience and mental fortitude that they need, but also to show them what it looks like to build themselves from ground zero to in the space that I'm in right now.
In the book, you have lots of those moments of where you're bearing your soul, you're being super transparent. Was there one instance in particular? I guess I don't want you to go too far into it because you don't want to ruin the book. But was there one situation where you're like, maybe that's a little bit too much to share, or you knew at the beginning of writing this, like, I'm just gonna tell everything?
No, there were actually two. There were two incidents. So the two of them were, and I usually talk about those two. One of which was I didn't qualify. My SAT scores wasn't high enough to get into Yukon.
Okay.
And Yukon ended up giving me an opportunity anyways, even though my SAT scores didn't qualify. And I was just like, I'm Dr. Trisha Bailey. I can't let them know that my SAT scores, I wasn't smart enough to get this score to get into school. But then I was talking to my good friend, C.K. Mulford, who was a writer of the book. And he said, I said, I have a secret. And he says, your secrets are never secrets. Is like the big ones you tell everyone, but then the small ones you're like, they're secrets. So I told him, and he said, girl, stop right now. So I decided I was going to go ahead and put that in the book because, there's some young women or young men who are maybe struggling or can't get the standardized test, the score that they need, and they feel like that they cannot become extremely successful like I am. So that was one. And the second one was a suicide attempt. Because all the other things that's happened to me, someone did it to me. So these two things, things that I could not do, I went in the dark space that I felt like I couldn't come out of it. But then again, I said, you know what? I don't want another person, a single person, to ever be in this dark space that I was. So if they see that I'm able to overcome, maybe they also truly can also overcome. So those were the two
And when I read
things.
about that suicide attempt, I thought that the manual, I thought he did something to you when I was reading it because you ended up in a coma, and I know you've discussed that before, and a lot of things you didn't remember. So then I was like, is that what really happened, or did somebody do? Because like you said, a lot of things were happening, and so I don't know, for some reason, you talk about the strength and the resilience that you've had, but that's just sometimes it's a breakdown.
Yeah, sometimes it's a breakdown. Sometimes you get that place that you're like, I just can't. I just can't anymore. And I really hope that whomever read my book will know that they actually can, that there's always light, no matter what the circumstances in life. Just give it time. Just give it a little bit of time, and they will be able to start seeing their light.
Now, Dr. Trisha Bailey, I want to ask you this, because as a young girl, you were very unprotected. Even your mom, you did attempt to tell her what was happening in the house with your stepfather, and she told you that you were a liar, right? Have you ever, after that, you've never had a conversation with her about any of what transpired? And because there's no way, like you said, that somebody could not have known in that house what was going on.
So I struggle with that. I struggle with that a lot. And because whether she knew or not know, I still don't know the answer to that.
But you did tell her, so.
Well, I told her later on. So I had all the memories of how I was going to tell her. And I told her later on when I was about 25. But she didn't know the full details. She found out the full details the same time everyone did in the book.
And what did she say?
We never talked about it.
Really?
So how'd you know that she? Oh, because
she read the book.
She read the book. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to talk to her? Do you feel like you will at some point?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure because I have moved to the place of complete forgiveness for everyone who has not supported me when they were supposed to support me, who have not loved me when they were supposed to love me. And we are in a really good space right now, my mom and I don't even, she's a Caribbean woman. They don't like to talk about those things.
Because, her reaction when reading that, I'm sure for her that's also, she's a Caribbean woman, and that's not something that normally would be shared, culturally. We don't talk about those things. Right. And it's really just about like, keep your head down, keep moving, keep working, do what you need to do, get ahead. Now you're successful. And so it's kind of like everybody feels like they did what they were supposed to do. But I just feel like even coming from a place of you've forgiven, that's even a better time to find out.
Yeah, and I think my mom also had her own traumas,
and we don't even know what that is.
We don't know what those are, and my job in her life is to love her and to care for her, whether it's if she wants to stay silent in the situation, I'll allow her to stay silent because maybe that is the way she heals herself. If she wants to have an open conversation, my sister is the open conversation type. So she's like, let's talk about this. Let's go to therapy together. And I'm like, let me allow you to heal how you need to heal. Right. And so that's that kind of the space that my mom and I function in. We still haven't talked about it. But
Ayanna Van Zant was just here. We might be able to set something up. That conversation, I don't know. It could, you never know what kind of doors something like that could break down and barriers.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be helpful for other people as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Having those really hard conversations with your mom or somebody close to you.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, though. Mm-hmm. See, I have gone through my process of therapy, right? So I have healed my wounds and my scars.
Okay.
My mom has not gone through that. Right. So when you have not gone through it and you need to talk about it, and let's say that you blame yourself for it, I think someone who's a real professional, a real therapist, a trained professional would have to be involved.
Of course. Because
there are certain emotions that she will more likely not feel. That for me, I don't really feel much anymore because I have dealt with my traumas.
Okay.
And I don't know if she's willing to go through that pain. And I don't know if I'm willing to
That's
let her go through that pain.
So we'll stop pushing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have a question.
I was just asking. Go ahead.
I have a question. How did you tell your kids that you were going to write this book? And did you talk to them, about what moments you were going to share? Or because this is a lot.
Like your mom found out certain things, your kids may have also found out certain things from reading this book. Or did they have advance notice? Had you been having those lines of communication open?
So I talk to my kids very openly. So I believe that you should not conceal too much from the children, where you shelter them so much, or you shouldn't give them too much because then you traumatize them. So there's a center,
balance,
right? So they're exposed just enough, but not too much. My oldest biological, Natalia, she started reading the first 2 pages, and she's like, "Mom, I can't do this."
Yeah,
and I respect that, but she's the only aged child that I have that I would actually allow to read my book. Okay. My oldest 25-year-old adopted child, she read it. So she saw we talked about it, and she didn't have a lot of questions.
Okay.
But she was like, oh, just like everyone else, right?
Can I give you a hug?
Yes, can I give you a hug? I have so much more respect for you now.
That was the voice. That was us.
And what about the men in your life? Are you in contact with any of them that you wrote about in this book? Because there were some, domestic violence situations that were really, really traumatic.
Yeah, I actually am. Everyone says, "How are you so nice to these people?" That's just who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm in touch with my ex-husband. He's an amazing father. Mm-hmm. Him as a man,
Is that Kingsley?
No. Oh. So Kingsley's my first husband.
Okay.
He's a good man. Mm-hmm. I'm still friends with him.
Okay.
Because I changed the names of the characters in the book
to
protect their privacy.
Okay.
Ricardo and I have a good co-parenting relationship.
Okay.
Where it's positive. It's positive for my son because my son doesn't need to experience my pain. Mm-hmm. And I want to raise him in an environment that he doesn't see his mom and dad bickering at each other.
Right.
And because of that,
That's very mature. That's hard for people.
I have chosen to make sure that he never experiences that with us.
Okay.
And so now we just talk about him, and he's a great father. Mm-hmm. So I have to give him his credit for that. Now, him being a husband to me was not the case at all. I'm in touch with, what is his name? Devin.
Yeah, I think of the names in the book.
I want to talk about Devin for a second. At the time, he ended up putting his car on your insurance, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're paying for his insurance. While you're in the hospital, he calls you and asks you who is your insurance provider. Mm-hmm. While you are in the hospital, having contractions. And then you end up paying for that. Turns out he has a whole other woman 6 months pregnant while you're in the hospital giving birth. He just did not participate. Then he ends up going to jail, right? Now, what would you do in that situation, Jasmine?
I wouldn't deal with him anymore. I would leave him. I wouldn't talk to him anymore. That's it.
Now, what did you do, Dr. Trisha Bailey?
Not that.
Not that.
The family, by the way, were very nasty to her, cut her off, right? Had nothing to do with her. Had the other women living with them.
The nerve.
With the 6-month-old. But go ahead.
Yeah. I end up paying for his legal fees. He still end up going.
You have all the blessings, though. I want to say, like reading this, I realized that compassion, because you felt like we have a child, we have a son,
Yeah.
and I don't want to leave him there.
I didn't want my son father to be in prison.
And that is really like the ultimate of, I want to make sure that my son is good. So regardless to how this man treated me, I care about my son more than I care about my feelings about this person.
Yeah.
That's a hard space for people to get into.
And that's where I am. I'm like that with all of them. And then now my children, I allow them to decide whether or not they want to be in their father's life. It's not my choice.
Right.
Because I'm always going to be kind and loving, because I am like that with everyone. Even if you hurt me, that's why I have the ability to love the next person equally as much.
Where
as
does
if it
that
was the
come
last.
from?
I think that's just a gift, truly, because I literally give myself 48 hours and I am not capping on no level. 48 hours, I will cry, I'll sulk, and the next day I'm like, okay, all right,
get
I'm
back
good
to
now.
it.
I'm good now.
So you give yourself 2 days.
2 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't live in there. I say I experience the pain, but I will not live in the pain.
What type of therapy have you gone through?
So I did 10 years of talk therapy. And that helped somewhat because it helped you to process your boundaries and be able to engage with different people. But then I discovered EMDR therapy, which is a non-talk therapy, which is specialized in trauma. And what it does, it basically allows you to traumas are in your subconscious like ice cubes. And a normal memory, you walking down the street, that's why you won't remember it 10 years later. But a trauma, you're going to remember exactly what happened
Every
to
detail.
you, all the details. What it does, what EMDR does, is melt all those memories so that it's a normal memory, and so that the trauma is not affecting you. That's why I'm able to talk about it freely now and able to go through the stories without actually feeling broken, without feeling as though I need help. Because I did 8 sessions of the EMDR therapy, so I advocate so much for this. So if any of you are out there who needs,
I probably need that. Yeah.
who needs some trauma therapy, EMDR. EMDR is
8 sessions is not a lot.
no, it's not a lot. Now it's painful because you're reliving
Yeah, I don't know
it.
if I want to go back in.
But you should, because so it's picture yourself in the room. You go in the room, it's completely dark, and you only have a flashlight. The only light you see is the little flashlight. That's a person with trauma. After you have processed it and deal with it, like through EMDR, now you turn the entire light switch on and your entire world is lit. And so now, like, I am truly at the happiest place I've ever been in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
That $1 billion don't hurt either.
Yeah. I might want, yeah.
It doesn't, but money, but you know that money.
I just had to throw that out there.
It doesn't, but you know that money, it does. Money really is not happiness.
No, I know.
It's the
I agree.
convenience of it. So what happened after I did the EMDR, I was able to start dating normally. So because I started dating normally, I met the most amazing man I've ever met in my life. If I met him 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the relationship wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
But,
too much going on. You think you would have been able to write this book without EMDR
No.
therapy? No.
No, not at all. I don't believe. I could have write the book, but I wouldn't be able to talk about it the way that I do. I wouldn't be able to extend the healing that I believe is my calling and the help that I truly need to give to the world. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Is this type of therapy expensive?
No, it's like mine was $170 a session.
Oh.
Yeah.
My sessions now
can
are
do that.
$150.
Yeah,
You
so
could do the
$20
extra
more,
$20.
and
Yeah.
you come out healed.
I'll give you the $20. All right, now let's get back. Let's talk about some money talk too. All right, because you're definitely an entrepreneur and somebody that we should look to, because I love the fact that, you know, being in the space that you're in, you've been able to just say, okay, let me try this, let me do this, and it's really worked for you. You know, but you've also laid down the groundwork. You're very intelligent, and you have been from a young age, even in the midst of having to go through so many different things, moving to Hartford, kind of not even, you know, being bullied as a kid growing up, but still being and like you said, not scoring very high on your SATs. But at the same time, some people just aren't good at test taking. And I feel like they've shown in many different instances how those standardized tests can be biased, you know, culturally. Yeah. So sometimes it's not that you're not smart. It's just that test is not, you know, aligned with the way that we learn. Yeah. And so you ended up getting a scholarship. Yes. Right, to go to Yukon. Yes. You wanted to go to Morgan State. Jasmine went to Morgan State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's kind of
all the wrong reasons I wanted to go to Morgan State.
Your mom said no?
She was like, no, you're not going there.
But she was okay with you going to Yukon. So discuss the path of you going from high school in Hartford to going to Yukon.
So Yukon was, so I was recruited by every Division I school in the country.
For track.
For track. And, you know, I went to my recruit trip with Yukon. I was like, I am not going here. My good friend Ray Allen was one of my hosts at the time. I went to Morgan State for one of the recruit trips. I see all the cues, and they were dancing and doing
You're like,
doing what they do. I'm like, okay, I'm coming here. So Yukon actually ended up taking a chance on me. And, you know, one of the reasons I ended up going back and doing a large donation to the university because...
The largest donation they've ever gotten.
I know, I saw that.
Okay, go ahead.
And the reason why I did that is because from a young girl from urban Hartford that most people would count out, and most people did count me out, they took a chance on me. And because they took a chance on me, it was the start of my life, a successful life. And so that's the reason why I went back and did a donation. So it's pretty much changed my life. It's changed my life for the positive and to be in the space where I am now.
And then just even for you going on the path that you're on now. So first when you got out, at some point you were a stockbroker.
Yes.
Right? And so that's not an easy space to be in. And especially being like a black woman.
And a woman, too.
Yeah, a woman and a black woman as a stockbroker. What was that experience like for you? Because there were a lot of times you were in those spaces where you were certainly the only one or one of few.
Yeah. So Yukon kind of set me up for that role. So that's the other part, you know, loving the university, my alma mater. When you're an athlete at University of Connecticut, because you know it's the only, there's no professional sports in Connecticut. So when you're an athlete at Yukon, usually jobs will give you an interview, and it's your responsibility to actually sell them to this place. So I became the youngest stockbroker in the history of the company.
22 years old.
And I was the only black woman in the New England for Smith Barney. And I knew that I belong. So a lot of people ask me, so when you're the only one there, how do you function? How do you navigate? I always knew I belong, and belonging there, I have to make sure that I'm better than every single person that's there. So I gave it everything that I had. I was always the first in the office at 6 a.m. Most nights I didn't leave until 11 o'clock at night.
Ooh, what kind of life did you have outside of that?
None.
Right.
None.
And I always look at that as like we've seen like the Wolf of Wall Street and just the environment to be in. What was that environment like as far as like, because I always look at stockbrokers as like the crazy partiers doing all kind of cocaine and stuff. Yeah.
It is that life. I remember back that when I always joke and says, you know, the men, they are, it's either this person's on coke or this person's on this drugs or doing this drugs. And they will say to me, so what are you? I was like, well, I'm the manizer. So
That's your drug.
that was my drug.
Hilarious.
But it gives you, when you see people who don't look like you, when you're adapting to the environment, for me, I had to, because that's all I knew. All I knew was to work.
Right.
When I watched my grandmother walk 25 miles to the market and sell the produce and walk back 25 miles every Thursday, is like it gives you a kind of level of work ethic and tenacity and the ability to overcome that you can't even imagine.
Right.
And so I knew that my responsibility is to be the absolute best. And because I'm obsessed with finishing and I'm obsessed with being successful in the process, my sister tells me that my superpower is I'm fast. I'm fast with everything I do.
Yeah, running, but learning. Okay. And then eventually you left there, and then you ended up getting into the pharmaceutical business.
Yes.
So talk about that, because that has been highly lucrative for you.
Oh, yes. So when I left being a broker, I knew that at this point, I'm like, they give you the clients, because the hardest part in being a stockbroker is finding the clients who have money. And when I realized they give you the clients, I'm like, I have all the skills in the world to be the absolute best. So when I transitioned to Takeda Pharmaceuticals, I applied the same skills that I had as a broker. So now I had the discipline, I had the financial literacy. So I started doing my MBA because the job wasn't enough work for me. So
Hilarious.
So I started doing my MBA, and the company was paying for my education.
You might as well.
And so what I did during that time, because I already had the financial literacy, I had lots of money saved up from being a broker, but then I wanted to continue doing more. So I took my student loans and I used them to flip houses.
Sheesh.
And then
How she knew to do all this? Because you're the first person in your family to even go to college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for you to have all of this knowledge, and look, it's not that, like you said, your grandmother walked 25 miles to the supermarket once a week to get food for the whole family and to barter and to bring food and to do all of those things. It's not that people didn't work hard, but you were able to work hard in a different type of space.
Yeah.
And smart.
Very lucratively.
Work smart.
So that's why I say save, discipline, save, and then learn financial literacy. That way you
Yes.
know how to invest that money. And because I went from saving and had the discipline, and now I had the financial literacy because I was taught that from being a broker, now I'm able to invest in not only in the stock market, the real estate market, and various investments. So I would never recommend if someone taking their student loans to do investments unless you know really well
What you're doing. Yeah,
because that could go completely
Left,
side.
yeah.
Yes.
You could have even more debt.
Yeah, even more debt. And you don't want that. You want to come out on top.
And then the entrepreneurship part happened for you.
And the entrepreneurship happened. So I had got promoted into the second company I was with. I was finishing my doctorate degree at the time. I had my MBA. I was number one in the company. I had every award that they can give out in the company. And so they promoted me without a formal interview. And they usually do a formal interview for promotions. And so when I got to California, they had approved all the things I could do. When I got to California, my boss had lunch with me the first day, and he looked at me. He says, "Oh, I didn't know you're black." And I said, "Yeah, I'm black."
Yeah.
Not thinking anything of it because, I mean, why would that even matter, right? And a week later, he started disapproving everything that was previously approved.
Wow.
Still happened.
And at that point, Devin, the character in the book, Devin, he said to me, "Why are you working for someone you have all these degrees?"
Right. See, he may have been useless in other ways, but he was useful. And you took that.
And I took it. And I ran with it. And I started my first company, which was a medical recruiting company. And it became extremely successful. The first 6 months, I mean, I literally worked my tail off. I was maybe 3-4 hours maximum sleep. I was working because I was on the West Coast. So I will get up at 5 a.m., knowing that's 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and I'll work until 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was back at it again at 5 a.m. every single day.
And you had your daughter with you this whole time, too. Sometimes people who, moms feel like they can't fathom how can they manage to do this. How did you manage to do that, having a young daughter, and then you had a son?
Yeah. So at this time, I did not have my son. I just had my daughter, but she was on my hip everywhere I go. So everything I was doing, sometimes I'll have her. I mean, I remember breastfeeding, putting my makeup on, whatever it is I needed to get done. I was doing it when I had her.
Did you ever feel bad? Because I know Jasmine, she has a 2-year-old, and sometimes she feels guilty. Like, even if she's gone for the day, she feels so. I'm like, Jasmine, because it is a difficult thing to think about.
No, I never felt guilty. I'm sorry. I didn't.
There you go, Jasmine.
Okay. I didn't feel guilty because she was with me so much,
Right.
and everything I did, I always had her with
But
me.
see, she's with her. That's why she don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
So I always had her with me. So it was just us. It was me and her, and so I didn't end up feeling the guilt because I knew she was learning. So because I would see her, she has her little computer and she's like this
Like
on
you.
there, and then she was like, and so she was mimicking everything that I did, but I didn't know if I was being a good mom. But that I questioned. I was like, am I being a good mom? I don't know if I'm doing this right. But now that I see my baby, oh my God, she's just kind of complete joy. She's graduating next year from University of Florida.
Okay.
And she is an artist and she's just blooming. And I'm like, I was a good mom. I was
did it
being a
right.
good mom. I did it right. I'm surprised, but I did.
And look, I also want to talk about your investments too. Now, let's talk about your investments in some of these sports teams.
Yeah.
Because people may not know about this. So how did this even come about?
So it's basically you have to be invited into being a minority owner for various sports team. And so there's a group, basically like private equity group that comes together, invites you in to be one of the investors. So that's how. So I can't walk in these arenas and be like, oh, I own your team.
Right, you can't.
Right.
Right.
But we can put in the bio.
Right.
Let's see, what are the teams? Hold on, because I had a list.
There's a few of them, right?
Yes. The Charlotte Hornets, the Atlanta, Team Atlanta Hawks, and Seattle.
Do you go to the games? Do you have a team you like?
I do. I actually go to Magic. So I have floor seats at the Magic's game, and I sometimes forget that I'm not supposed to be cheering for the Magic. So I'm supposed to be cheering for my team.
You're
I'm like,
hold on,
I'm cheering
depends on who's
against.
playing.
I'm cheering against my own self-interest here.
But hey, if they gave you the floor seats, you would be cheering there too.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But when it comes to your book, Unbroken, what are some things that you've heard from people? First, I want to ask you what you've heard that people have taken from it, and then I want to know what you yourself got from writing this.
So what people have, it's been the consensus. They say that I help them to share their own trauma and to go get help. Yesterday I met a young man at Yukon, and he was just so excited. I thought, who are you so excited about? I'm looking behind. And he said that he started EMDR therapy.
Ooh,
and
okay.
he said he has never been in a happier place he has ever been in his life.
That's great. We might got to try this.
I think I got to.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be
think
like tens of thousands of dollars. She said 170 her session was. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, 170. And so consensus across the board. It's people tell me, you've helped me heal. You've given me the energy of healing. You allow me to see that I can overcome my struggles, and I can also let go and forgive. They also tell me that they have also seen, I've had one story, actually a few stories that said, I was so inspired, I wanted to buy a building, but I didn't know what to do with a building, but I just need to know I want to buy a building. And I thought that was, and so across the board, it's either they're inspired, they are empathetical, or it is helping them with their own personal lives and their own personal trauma to share it and to have the necessary conversations to be able to overcome.
And what did you get?
What did I get? I get to know that I am doing my calling. I am living in my purpose in helping others. So when I hear stories like these, it refuels me, because I know the reason why I wrote it. I wrote it and I was raw because I wanted each person who's experiencing any of these things or a combination of these things to be able to know that they can truly be successful in their endeavors, and they can overcome, and they can see their light at the end of the day.
Do you think that, earlier you made a joke about being a manizer. And do you feel like you were looking for love, like to be loved, or things that were lacking in your household?
Oh, yes. Because the thing is, when you're a traumatized person, all you want is to be loved. That void of whatever was stolen from you, that you weren't cared for and loved, that's all you're looking for. So I've always been like this hopeless romantic. I pour my whole self into every relationship, not just males, females, and friends as well. Mm-hmm. And I was searching for that person who I can give everything to, the way I give my business, and my business gives it back to me. I was looking for that person to be able to pour my whole self into, and they mirrors me and give it back to me. And I finally... Now I'm at that stage where I have that.
So you're married now or engaged?
No, I'm not married or engaged.
Okay, I see that
You're
ring. I didn't know that. Yeah,
I'm in a relationship.
That ring is ringing.
That ring is ringing. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Had to ask.
It's a life partnership ring.
Okay, life partnership. I'm with that. Is it hard though for you to date, just knowing that like somebody could Google you and see you're worth $1 billion? You know, I said 700 million, $1 billion, whatever. But is that hard to know that like somebody can look it up and be like, oh, okay, she's beautiful, but she also got that cash.
She lit.
So yes, and I thank God I'm not having to date now because
because it was a problem.
Right, but most people didn't know who I was, mm-hmm. and I became public when I did a donation to Yukon. Not for my doing. As a matter of fact, I told them to keep it private.
Mm-hmm.
And
we don't know what the amount is.
The amount is here. We don't know the amount.
Undisclosed.
They already disclosed it. So
how much?
It's $15 million.
Ooh, okay.
I wanted to kind of stay under the radar because
mm-hmm. I've
always just kind of kept my head down, and the public doesn't know who I am. And then I became public, so I met him very early on in the stage of when I became public.
Okay.
But he also is the same as me. He's equally financially yoked, and he's equally as successful. So
yeah, two wealthy people.
Yeah. So it matched and it fits, and his family is just like mine. They're
That's
loving
amazing.
and kind.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Thank you. I love it for me too.
She's like, you love it. I love it.
Listen, we love this. Well, Dr. Trisha Bailey, Unbroken is available now. And I tell you guys, like, you have to read this book, and it is going to put you through some things, you know. But I also feel like we love the fact that we can see you sitting here and know how the story ends.
Yes.
You know, up until now. I feel like there'll be another book that's going to be like...
Or maybe we'll see this on the big screen or the small screen one day.
I feel like...
It's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's compelling.
I've been hearing so many... Pretty much everyone asked. Everyone read the book.
Who would play you as a youngster?
Haley Bailey.
I can see that.
You know, I was thinking like not just depending on what age. I was thinking like a Tiana Taylor. I think Haley would be good.
I think it could be even somebody, but I feel like we need a track star, like a young.
Oh yeah,
track
it's
star.
somebody we don't know. Let's just cast something. Do some new fresh
We'll start
talent.
casting anybody who feels like no.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
You're over here casting,
We'll
but
ca-
no
we'll
words.
cast.
It's like
Yeah.
something that definitely can be done. I know you're working on a documentary now.
Yes, Innovations in Connecticut. So
Okay.
I was one of the
great.
4 most successful people who graduated from Yukon. So they're doing a documentary now, and I filmed yesterday, and it was pretty interesting. I had to go back to the apartment that I came to when I started the nightmare.
How did that feel?
I didn't know I was going to start crying on camera, but I did. So in the morning, I said, well, I guess it's a test to see how healed I am. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not healed.
Right.
Because, the memory's still there. It's just not, it doesn't affect me the same way that it used to affect me.
Okay.
So I started the story and the experiences of walking home from school and crying when I'm walking home from school because I was so afraid to be home. And then we went to the next apartment where, the worst thing that could ever happen to a child happened. And then I transitioned to my high school on the track. And then I found my happy place again.
Yes, running.
Running.
And not just running, but running and winning.
running and winning. Yes.
Ain't nothing like winning.
Running to success.
Well, again, thank you so much. And we're definitely going to stay in contact. I told her I went to Wesleyan, so that wasn't that far from Yukon. So we had some fun conversations about that. But
Yeah, that was cool.
all right, good. Well, look, we got our rich friend.
I know that's right.
No, but honestly, it is a pleasure to be able to talk to you. And you are definitely a role model for anybody who is watching this to know that you can make incredible things happen, and you certainly have.
Well,
and so
thank
we
you so
appreciate you and we celebrate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
It's Way Up with Angela Yee.